Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. We're reading this morning the second half of chapter 27 of the Uddhava Gita, 11th canto, Lord Krishna's instructions on the process of deity worship. And this is a poignant chapter because what? What's happening in their conversation between Krishna and Uddhava? What's that? Yeah. What's about to happen? Exactly. Yeah, Krishna's about to leave, and so he's instructing Uddhava on deity worship so he can endure the separation he's about to have. So this is very detailed. I'm glad they're laughing in there. So this is a detailed instruction on keeping the deity worship going, so that Uddhava can remember Krishna in his pending absence. Let's see, I think one paragraph up with the details of worship. So the details are very extensive, so we're just going to read the chapter summary. Do we have a mic? Would somebody like to start the first of these three paragraphs?
Should I read?
Go ahead.
The details of the worshipping process are as follows. The devotee should bathe both physically and by chanting mantras, and then he should perform the utterance of Gayatri at the prescribed juncture of the day. He should arrange a seat facing either east or north, or else directly facing the deity, and should bathe and clean the deity. Then he should present clothing and ornaments, sprinkle water on the vessels and other paraphernalia to be used in the worship, and offer water for bathing the deity's feet, Arghya, water for washing his mouth, fragrant oils, incense, lamps, flowers, and food preparations. After this, one should worship the Lord's personal servants and bodyguards, his consort energies, and the spiritual masters by chanting their respective mula mantras. The worshipper should recite prayers from the Puranas and other sources, offer obeisances flat on the ground, beg for a benediction, and place on himself the remnants of the Lord's garlands.
Thank you. Actually, one more paragraph. Ladies, Stina.
Included in this method of deity worship are the proper installation of the transcendental deity by constructing a fine temple, and also the conducting of processions and other festivals. By worshipping Lord Sri Hari with unconditional devotion in this manner, one gains access to pure loving service to his lotus feet. But if one steals property that has been given as charity to the deity or the brahmanas, whether given by himself or by others, he will have to take his next birth as a stool-eating worm.
That's right. Not just an ordinary worm. Okay. Yeah, what is the crime? Stealing the deity's property, yes. Okay. So this summarizes the verses in the last half of this chapter, and we're going to verse 48 to focus a little more on this one beautiful statement in the report. Archadishu yada yatra Shraddha mam tatra charchayat Sarvabhuteshvat manicha Sarvat maham avastita Archadishu yada yatra Shraddha mam tatra charchayat Sarvabhuteshvat manicha Sarvat maham avastita. Please chant. Archadishu yada yatra Mam tatra charchayat Sarvabhuteshvat manicha Sarvatmaham avastitaha. Archadishu yachayata. Sarvabhuteshvara Sarvabhastam avastitaha. Archadishu yatachatra. Shradhamam tatra charchayet. Sarvabhuteshvatmanicha. Sarvabhamaavastita. Archadishu yadayatra. Shradhamam tatra charchayet. Sarvabhuteshvatmanicha. Sarvatmahamavastitaha. Synonyms together, please. Archa Adishu, in the deity form and other manifestations of the Supreme Lord. Yada, whenever. Yatra, in whichever form. Shraddha, faith develops. Mam, me. Tatra, there. Cha, and. Archayet, he should worship. Sarvabhuteshu, with all created beings. Atmani, separately, in my original form. Cha, also. Sarvatma, the original soul of all. Aham, I am. Avastita, so situated. And translation together. Whenever one develops faith in me, in my form as a deity, or in other bona fide manifestations, one should worship me in that form. I certainly exist both within all created beings and also separately in my original form, since I am the supreme soul of all. Who would like to read the purport? Rasika Prabhu?
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped according to the faith of a particular worshiper. The deity form, Archa, is specifically mentioned here because deity worship is essential for spiritual progress. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions that inexperienced persons may think that the deity is meant for the sense gratification of the worshiper, since superficially the deity is made of external substances such as marble or brass. But through the process of installing the deity by chanting of authorized mantras, one invites the Supreme Personality of Godhead to enter the deity form. By regulated, faithful worship, one gradually understands that the deity is completely non-different from the Supreme Lord himself. At that stage, on the strength of deity worship, one rises to the second-class platform of devotional service. At the more developed stage, one desires to make friendship with other devotees of the Lord. And as one becomes solidly established in the community of Vaishnavas, one completely gives up material life, and gradually becomes perfect in Krishna consciousness.
John. In earlier ages. In previous ages, there were different processes of self-realization. In Satya Yuga, it was meditation, and people would dedicate thousands of years of their very long lives to meditation. You know, we read about these incredible lifespans that people used to live. I don't know if you ever noticed, even in the Bible, in the New Testament, it begins with the genealogy of Jesus, and his one predecessor lived 1,000 years, 900 years. You ever notice that? So the shrinking lifespans are there, even though in our current context, nobody would consider that anything but mythology. Anyway, these long lifespans used to exist in the Satya Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, previous ages to the current age of Kali Yuga. And in each of those ages, there was a particular means of self-realization. So in the Satya Yuga, it was meditation. In the Treta Yuga, it was sacrifice. In the Dwapara Yuga, deity worship, right? And then in this age, it is joining a obscure religious institution. No, I'm sorry, chanting the holy name. Chanting the holy name, yes. And what was accomplished with great difficulty in these previous methodologies is accomplished very easily by chanting. All the same benefits are available, but it's just so convenient. Deity worship, for example, in its full manifestation, as we see in this chapter, is very elaborate. Krishna is giving many, many detailed instructions. It's mentioned one should offer eucalyptus twigs to the deity to use as a toothbrush. That's one of the details. Now, Srila Prabhupada used to do this because his guru also used the eucalyptus twigs. And they take the twig and chew on the end, and then they can be used to clean the teeth like that. Can you give the purport to this?
We send camphor twigs to Prabhupada from Gainesville.
Oh, they're also useful. Camphor trees are like trash trees in Gainesville, right? Yes. But they are, okay, that's good to know. What is that? Neem also. Okay, so that's the village technique, and Srila Prabhupada used to boast that he had all his teeth that using this, not using plastic toothbrushes, which he considered useless. So when he first went to San Francisco, he had asked his disciples to provide some eucalyptus twigs for his use, and he went. They were only available in this Golden Gate Park. So early in the morning, the devotees would sneak over and break off some twigs, eucalyptus twigs, to bring to Prabhupada. So once a devotee got caught up in the tree breaking a twig by a policeman, the policeman said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm getting toothbrushes for my spiritual master." The idea is the best of everything is offered to the deity. So what is the usual deity? If we don't have the deity of Krishna, what is our deity? What's that? No? I was thinking in a more general sense, we meaning all of humanity. Even more immediate. Ourselves? I was thinking of you wake up in the morning and you get in front of the bathroom mirror and it's like Govindam Adi Purusham, I'm greeting the deity, right? Right? And then we do Abhishek, and then we dress in fine ornaments and clothes, right? And then we offer 4 kinds of delicious food. This is all the practices. If the body is the deity. And this is because we're people. The idea of trying to worship an impersonal God, just think about how difficult and obscure that is. How can you have a relationship with this all-pervasiveness? There is no way to reciprocate. You can't offer a garland, you can't offer food. It's all in the mind. It's just this concept of God, as opposed to a very tangible form of God. So deity worship, of course, is very foreign, or it's even considered heretical for most Judeo-Christian religions. Yeah. The exception is Catholicism, where they have iconography. They have statues of Jesus and saints. Any Catholics? Yeah. So you saw this. It wasn't a blasphemy to have a statue. The idea of God, even in Catholicism, where is the statue of God? The statue of Mary, the statue of Jesus, statue of the saints. But God remains this unnamed something. But maybe his Father, Yahweh, you can call him, but there's no form. So the idea is that God can be, he's much too grand to have a form. He's way beyond, because every form we've ever encountered, every person, every relationship we've ever had has been disappointing. And so God must be greater than that, must be so much more. And what is more than a form? There must be a formless. It must be freed of the encumbrance of a form. But by definition, form is superior to formless, right? Formless would mean it is lacking something that a form has. So the form is the superior deity, the superior notion of God, and yet it's rejected. There's historical reasons for this. For example, in Islam, the trading center of Medina used to be the center for all these different tribes to come and share their goods. And each tribe had their own god that they worshiped. So the savvy traders in this one city, Medina, made a temple with all the tribal gods represented, so that it was sort of like a shopping center for theology. And that way everybody felt they could come and trade their goods and be pious. And so Muhammad came and broke all these deities and said there should be no concept of God in a deity. And therefore, the idea of deity worship is very, very offensive to Muslims. When they conquered northern India, they smashed the deities, they would destroy the temples, the iconography, anything that had any semblance of form. So the devotees in Vrindavan had to take the deities that had been established by Lord Chaitanya and his followers and take them to Jaipur, hundreds of kilometers away, where the king was strong enough to repel the Muslims. So the original Radha Govinda deities, Radha Madan Mohan deities, others, Radha Gopinath, yeah, they're all in Jaipur still. So and similarly in Christianity, the idea of a deity is considered idolatry, like putting something before God. This was taken from the Old Testament, where Moses went up to Mount Sinai to get the commandments from God. Correct me if I'm wrong, by Chaitanya Prabhu. What?
It's only in Protestantism.
Only in Protestantism, yes, okay. So they can handle that. So you're former Sampradaya in Orthodox.
And that the form of the Lord is an icon.
The form of
non-different from the Lord.
in Orthodox Christianity, the form of the Lord can be non-different, understood as is not different from him. But what is the form?
Well,
Please take the mic. We're going to hear from the Orthodox Christian side of the street here, please.
Because a revelation of God the Father is still pending, according to the words of Jesus, it's not a full revelation, but there are actually icons of God the Father.
Are icons like Da Vinci's?
No, this would be in the Christian East, like there is iconography, official bona fide iconography of God the Father and the Lord Jesus.
And Jesus. So what does God look like?
Well, he's an old man.
That's what I thought.
It's not the full thing, yeah.
No, I mean, personally, I have nothing against old men. Some of my best friends are old men, you know.
They understand that he's not old, but because they call him the Ancient of Days, they portray him like that, but it's not a literal thing.
I see. Still, to create the impression, he looks old.
yes.
Yeah, like on the Sistine Chapel, God is the guy with the oldest beard, the longest beard, right? So Protestantism, to be more accurate, thinks, yes, any form of God is idolatry, and you consider, especially Hinduism, is like polytheistic. There's so many deities, 33 million demigods. And so the idea they have is that, well, these people are just really looking for material benefits by worshiping these various gods, and they don't really have an idea of the supreme. And Moses, when he went up to the mountain, came down, and all his followers who had lost faith were worshiping a calf. They created a golden calf, right, as an idol. So this is generally why idolatry is rejected, because it's considered a mental idea of God, something made up. So in actual deity worship, archa, the form of the Lord is described in great detail in the scriptures. The beautiful form of Lord Krishna, Enum Konvantam Aravinda Dalayataksam, he's got a flute, his eyes are like lotus petals. His associates are described, his dress is described, always a peacock feather in the hair, the color of his skin, which is just like one of these summer thunderstorms coming in on the horizon, the monsoon bluish, blackish, gray, that is Krishna's skin. All of these forms are described, and all these details are described in great, beautiful explanations in the scriptures. So when we make a deity of Krishna, it is according to the actual description of the person. It is not something that is just made up in the mind. So when we have the personal form of the Lord, then we can establish a relationship. If we just made up something, Prabhupada compared it to making a nice post box. You can duplicate a mailbox, right colors, right shape, right size, but if you put your mail in it, it won't get delivered. So in the same way, if we offer worship to something out of the mind, whether it's form or formless, it doesn't allow us to develop this relationship, as described nicely here. By regulated faithful worship, one gradually understands that the deity is completely non-different from the Supreme Lord. At that stage, on the strength of deity worship, one rises to the second-class platform of devotional service. These three platforms of devotional service. What is the first one called? Kanishta, right. And Nishta means what? Steady, yes, steady. So it's like, I was always teasing Nishta, Devi Dasi, she should be Anishta, because she's always moving around from place to place. Are you in Dallas, Nishta? No, okay, anyway, at the airport. Okay, anyway, yes, wonderful devotee, but the point is, and a beautiful name also, Nishta. So Ka Nishta means without that steadiness. One comes and goes, and maybe I'll believe in Krishna, maybe not. Maybe I'll take shelter of Krishna, maybe not. Maybe I'll get serious, maybe I won't. But for the Kanishta, the deity worship is the first entry level to bhakti. And that's why it's so important, and even mentioned in our Srimad Bhagavatam and in our practice established by Srila Prabhupada, that people will come and get an idea that God is a person. And for the Hindu community, it's beautiful. They understand it. It's in the DNA, right? People come and there is immediately inclination to bow before the deity, to offer grains and fruits and vegetables, bags of flour, like Krishna says, offer me flour. So, they bring things automatically to the deities because they recognize this is a way to have a relationship with the Supreme. And the neophyte coming in for the Westerner to see the deity is a kind of a new experience. The deities are so gorgeous, like in Alachua, they're so beautifully dressed, obviously so much love and care in dressing and arranging the flowers and making the clothing. Everything's handmade. It is really overwhelming. It's impressive. And that has the effect on the neophyte of saying, okay, well, wow, maybe I can understand God in this way. But so much more fulfilling to our minds and senses than a formless notion or theoretical notion of God. That is the reason why Kanishta Adhikari is especially enjoined, worship the deity. And then, what's the second platform of devotional service? Madhyama, which is middle stage, right? So the deity worship is especially valuable to bring the Kanishta up to the Madhyama stage. And in the Madhyama stage, one feels, is mentioned here, first of all, connected with Vaishnava community. The Vaishnava community means people who are spiritually awakened, who are spiritually dedicated, who are focused on the goal of life of going back to Godhead, not trying to enjoy this material world. It's interesting, isn't it, that the symptom of connecting with God is that then we begin to connect with His devotees. And it may happen in the opposite order too. We first connect with the devotees and then gradually can develop an appreciation for the deity. But both of these things are antithetical to the ordinary concepts of friendship, society, and love. We feel connected because we're gators, you know? We feel connected because we're Americans, or we feel connected because we belong to this family or that state or whatever, right? We're identified with material things that are really only associated with our body. But the association of Vaishnavas, the connection is on the spiritual platform. So the Madhyama Adhikari is characterized by this ability to recognize, oh, this person is a Vaishnava, this person can help me in my spiritual life. This person is interested, innocent, I can help this person in their spiritual life. And this person is advanced and I can benefit my spiritual life with their association. There is discrimination. The Kanishta has no such power. And therefore the Kanishta is very easily redirected in many other ways. But the Madhyama is characterized by Nishta. Okay, I may not know everything about Krishna, but I am convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm convinced that I'm His servant. So that is unshakable, even if I can't defeat every argument or convince everybody. The Uttama Adhikari means one who is fixed in spirituality, but also knowledgeable about the science sufficiently to educate and even convince others, to defeat arguments, to show others the path of spirituality by sharing knowledge. So Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama. We tend to think about the Uttama Adhikari as one who is very, very overwhelmed with this loving relationship with the deity. And that is often the case, but not always. The deity worship is called Pancharatrika Vidhi, and teaching Krishna consciousness is called Bhagavat Vidhi. So these are two rails on which the train of bhakti can roll. But if there's only one rail, the Bhagavat Vidhi is the important one. In other words, we may or may not have deity worship, but sharing Krishna consciousness is the expression of the Uttama Adhikari. Srila Prabhupada said the word acharya, exemplary teacher, means one who knows the philosophy, practices it, and teaches it. So that, in the Nectar of Instruction, Prabhupada said such a person should be considered an Uttama Adhikari. So that applies freely to people who are a little experienced in Krishna consciousness and enjoy sharing it. And so it's not that you have to be rolling on the ground in ecstatic love and shedding tears and having hairs erupt and voice trembling and limbs shrinking into the body, as great devotees do. But it does entail us to be at a point of conviction where we want to share Krishna consciousness with others. Deity worship is important, but in the Kali Yuga especially, Sankirtan is important. Sankirtan means everyone coming together to chant. San means like that, together, like in English, synergy. There's the sense of unity and collective purpose. So that is something about deity worship. Let's see, what else do we have here? At this more developed stage, one wants to make friendship with other devotees and becomes solidly established in the community of Vaishnavas. I really like this. It's regulated devotional service. So this is one of the benefits of deity worship, that because the service of the deity should be very regular. Cleanliness and punctuality, the two things Prabhupada said are the most important in deity worship. Prabhupada introduced deity worship as Nanda Prabhu was speaking yesterday in San Francisco. First time in the West there had been active deity worship when Lord Jagannath appeared. And the puja program used to be that in the evening the devotees would light one ghee lamp, and then everyone would take a turn stepping up to the altar and offering the ghee lamp to Lord Jagannath. That was it. There was no arti, there was nothing else. And gradually he introduced more. Devotees asked if he could tell them everything, and he said, if I told you all the details, you would faint. So this chapter is full of faint-worthy details. And some devotees find that in-depth deity worship really their calling, and they do it, they learn, like Chadaratma Prabhu, all the yantras and tantras and mudras, and he loves all these things, and everybody loves seeing him do it. But it's not everybody's calling. Like here at Lord Chaitanya at Krishna House. So Lord Chaitanya here, we have a deal with Lord Chaitanya that if he sends us devotees, we take care of them. We don't have regular offerings for Lord Chaitanya. I sometimes wonder how he looks so hale and hearty with the lack of offerings, but Krishna is interested in the offerings of love. So the regular practice of deity worship can be very helpful to focus our mind so that our natural love for Krishna can come out. It's one of the means to connect with Krishna. So it's great to have deities in the home. It's great to have deities in the temple, or people have deities in their cars, in their offices, just to always be reminded of the form of the Lord. But the practice of Sankirtan, Bhagavat Vidhi, is it's the superior practice, or the more important practice, because everything that is accomplished by deity worship is accomplished by Sankirtan. As an example of this, in Vrindavan, in 1975, Srila Prabhupada was installing the deities of Krishna and Balaram. The temples in Vrindavan are rather conservative and ancient and traditional. So this was what they call the Anglis Mandir, is that how you say in Hindi? The English temple. Anglis Mandir. Anglis Mandir, yeah. So this is where the Westerners go to worship, because there were very few Indian body devotees in those days, very few. Prabhupada once said, I am the only Hindu in ISKCON. So Srila Prabhupada, knowing that people were skeptical about these Westerners doing deity worship in a temple, hired priests from South India, very traditional Brahmins, to come and perform the installation ceremony. They negotiated, they said, okay, we will need solid gold implements, ladles and spoons, and then after the yajna, we will keep them as dakshin. Yes, the treasurer is chuckling away. And Prabhupada did the same thing. He said, no, we're not going to give you that dakshin. But they came anyway, and they did the yajna. And I had the fortune to be there. I was watching all of this, and they were very big, portly, very nicely dressed, all very intense rituals going on for some hours. And Srila Prabhupada sat there for a good part of it patiently while they were doing all of these things. And none of the devotees knew what was going on or had ever seen anything like this. But they did it, they got their dakshin, they went home, and then afterwards Srila Prabhupada said, actually kirtan would have been sufficient. But we had to show the people that we are traditional. And this has been part of Vaishnava history, actually. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's direct disciples, were very simple sannyasis. They kept a deity around their neck or in some very simple way, offering very simple food because they were just mendicants. And they had no elaborate temples as were present in South India and elsewhere. However, the Brahmins of the day wanted to criticize them because they did not do these elaborate rituals. So one of them, Gopal Bhatta Goswami compiled an elaborate book about how to do deity worship called the Hari Bhakti Vilas. And this book has all kinds of information as a devotee should live this way, dress this way, all the details that just to show that, okay, we can do it too. So some devotees really get into the Hari Bhakti Vilas and want to follow every detail. But doing so would pretty much mean that you can't do much else. For example, like a Brahmin, if Brahmin touches his shoes, he's supposed to take a bath. So how many times a day would you have to take a bath? So many details. It's good for those who have that particular inclination, but it's not necessary for everyone. Similarly, deity worship will attract some people, but it's not required for everybody. And for this reason, Lord Chaitanya stays with us in Gainesville. We're very fortunate to have the deities in the Latchwood to go and see the whole process being carried out. All the householders in the community take part. It's a wonderful setup. But the decision is very individual, how much of deity worship we want to do. Some people are very drawn to it, and some people, like Vaninath Prabhu was saying yesterday, Vaninath's wife is painting my wife. Really, it's my wife's deities, Vaninath, not mine. But she's been worshiping these deities for 45 years, Radha Madhava. And Vaninath has become more attached to them than I have in 41 years. So.
I made a joke yesterday. I won't steal them.
Thank you. I would be in trouble if you did. But what I do really appreciate about the deity is the form as an aid to meditation. You can meditate on Krishna's feet, like Lord Nrsingadeva, his lotus feet, his lotus knees. When you're saying Gayatri, you count 10 times on your fingers in this traditional way of counting, and say each mantra 10 times. So you can meditate on each foot, on each knee, on his navel, on his shoulders, on his voice, on his face, and his head. 10. And through that form of the Lord, there's a beautiful way to fix the mind that is completely missing in an impersonal idea of God. So this is the value of deity worship. We take it in perspective. There's so many paths, so many practices. We don't have to do them all. One of the causes of trouble in spiritual life is trying to do too much. So even in deity worship, like home deity worship or temple, the best standard is one that you can maintain nicely. Otherwise, it becomes, what is the word? Kalagraha or something? Gulagraha, burden. It becomes a burden. Oh, my guru has given me this burden of worshiping these deities. We kind of miss the point of developing a loving relationship. So trying to do too much can become burdensome. Therefore, better to start very simply. Patram pushpam palam toyam. Just offer water, fruit, flower, whatever is accessible. And then Krishna will accept that if it's offered with love. Fortunately, that is our method in Kali Yuga, Harinam Sankirtan. Anyone can do that anywhere, anytime. Nam namakari bahuda, nija sarva shaktis. No hard, fast rules and regulations. Because we just really can't do all the details of deity worship. Okay, anyway, some thoughts on this first? Comments? Neat? We have a mic? We have a live mic? Okay, see if that one is with us.
Thank you for your wonderful class, Prabhu. Can you please describe in more detail, since you were already in Vrindavan, when Krishna Balram was getting installed and Prabhupada was there? So if you can describe more in detail about Prabhupada, what was he doing?
What was he doing? He was, he was probably, it was Krishna Balram in New Mayapur, actually. That was in France. Yeah, I happened to be there for that also. That was a good year. Yeah. What's that? No, that was similar post, but yeah, you see the backdrop is different. So Srila Prabhupada had been working very hard to establish this temple. There were complications. A pious lady donated the property, and it was way in the suburbs, way on the outskirts of the village of Vrindavan, way out there. But Prabhupada accepted it. But after he accepted it, she wanted to take the front part back to put in a gas station. So decided that could be good business. And so, you know what the punishment is for somebody who tries to take something back from the deity. So Prabhupada did not want her to suffer that fate. So he did not accept it. Anyway, he built the temple there, Krishna Balaram, with great difficulty. It was way out in the sticks at that time. All that was around it was just little farms and compounds, and there were lots of trees and parrots and peacocks, and very bucolic rural environment, which is hard to imagine when you go there now because it looks like downtown Bombay, right? But Prabhupada built the temple because he wanted his disciples to have a place to go. And he built the temple and a guest house that were together, not just one. So after he built it, then he went on a procession through Vrindavan. And it was quite a big event. There was an elephant and probably about 200 devotees walking through the Vrindavan. And again, Vrindavan was very small. It was a village, and people appreciated it very much. They all came out, and they were chanting, and they were applauding like "local boy makes good," you know, Swamiji. But they were very skeptical about the temple, so they had this whole puja, and then people kind of grudgingly accepted, all right, maybe this is a legitimate temple. Then Prabhupada, after the installation, offered the first arti. There are films of that. And I was standing pretty close to the front, and there's a sannyasi standing there as well. And Vishaka Devi, who was Prabhupada's videographer, was trying to get up front. And in the traditional way of humble renunciates, she was getting pushed back. So she said to this one sannyasi that you can stand here for the next 10 minutes and watch Prabhupada perform this first arti. But if you step aside, then the whole world can see him perform this first arti. So he did. And that's why we have that film of him with his beautiful silks. It was in April, and it was warm. But those are some of the things I remember. I was, yeah, that was in that 76, about a year later. Yes, Govinda Prabhu.
You were talking about how Sankirtan is more important, and I was reading yesterday about the story of Vamanadev and Sukracharya offending Bali Maharaj, and then Vamanadev asked, so what was the fault of Bali Maharaj in doing the sacrifice? And then basically Sukracharya apologized, and he said this, which relates to the deity worship which you were discussing. He says, there may be many discrepancies pronouncing mantras and observing the regular principles, and moreover, there may be discrepancies in regard to time, place, person, or paraphernalia. But when your Lordship's holy name is chanted, everything becomes faultless. Right. And then Prabhupada in the purport says, therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami has recommended that although one should take care to follow all the principles in every kind of spiritual activity, especially in worship of the deity, there is still a chance of discrepancies. And one should compensate for this by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Very nice. Very relevant. Thank you. Sadhu. Okay, any other comments, thoughts? April, right. Welcome back. Just like everyone's back in Gainesville now.
Some time back, I visited a temple with a newer devotee, and they mentioned, like, they saw all the opulence, and they're like, there's so much opulence, it takes flowers, the dress, the jewelry, and I mean, usually people appreciate that, but this devotee was like, oh, so much money is going into this, why can't it be like prasadam, or why can't you do something for the poor people? Why are we spending so much money doing all this? So what would be like a good way for them to understand and respond to that?
Right. Where are the assets for the poor coming from? They're coming from Krishna. If we want to do something for the poor, give them money, give them food, where does that come from? That comes from Krishna. So why should we not offer our respects to the source of all opulence? It's a mystery to the non-devotee why we should invest energy and time, because they don't understand the relationship. They don't understand that by this relationship with the deity, we have become fulfilled and enlivened and guided and clear in our spiritual lives. It's incomprehensible to them. So to them, it appears like a ritual. It just appears like some meaningless ritual with the hopes of some better future. And so to answer the question, yes, because Krishna is the source. Krishna is the source. Whatever Krishna gives us, we will certainly share it with everybody. And we can show that. We share prasadam all the time, and every time we have an opportunity. These are good questions. I just want to say, since we're talking about people coming and going, we're going to have Astasaki and Katie going off today, just when Prema and Christina and Radhika are coming back, and Tyler, and who else is and Kartikeya and Drew. So anyway, I just wanted to take a few minutes and offer Astasaki and Katie a chance to say anything you might like to before you are moving on to new frontiers on the West Coast. Both of you, right? Who wants to go first?
Okay, it's hard to know where to start because, I don't know how I can ever thank you guys enough for this opportunity that you've provided me in this community that you've invited me into. I honestly, had no idea coming here, that such a loving place existed, and so many loving people existed, and it's really just shifted my view on the world as a whole. I had no idea. It's so true that when you surrender to Krishna, he will take care of all your needs, and it will be far better than you can ever imagine. And I've certainly experienced that coming here this summer. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Astasaki, would you like to?
Hare Krishna. All right. Yeah, it's very hard to know where to start. I just realized that today is the 2nd of August, and I think it was either exactly a year ago, or it was the 3rd of August when I came here, so it's pretty significant. And I feel like in this year, I grew so much. There obviously were challenges and difficulties, but also there was so much bliss and grace coming from all the devotees, and being able to be in the association of so many Prabhupada's disciples. It's really amazing, because I never had that in Ukraine, and I feel some days I would take it for granted, having Prabhupada's disciples come and share their wisdom, share their knowledge with us, and share their love for Prabhupada. So it's something that I've never had, and something that I will always remember and be grateful for. And another thing is that, I don't know, I just feel so much love and gratitude for every person living here, anyone who been here, or anyone who left, who is still here, who will be coming back in the next few weeks, and people who already came back, and I'm leaving now, and I'm really sad to leave. There's just so much to learn from everyone, and there's just so much. and everyone like truly just feels like a family, like a brother, sister, sibling. Yeah, just feeling this deep love and gratitude to each one of you.
Thank you very much.
You so much.
Very sweet. Thank you. Both of you. Thank you. Now, for both of you and all of you in this position to invest some time in your youth in just diving into Krishna consciousness. It's so inspiring for me to see that, and I think you're fortunate to get that opportunity. So I did that, never regretted it. It's always been a great asset for me to remember my happy ashram days. So I'm glad you're experiencing it too. Okay, so Gopal, how are we doing on? Gopal is like the yeah, Gopal, please. Gopal Uvacha, he is the senior man here in Gainesville.
Yeah, as far as can the deity be God, in the Bible they have a burning bush. God can do anything he wants. And these deities are not installed. If we were to install them, then there would have to be a higher standard. And so we've never really, so this is kind of like a learning situation. I guess that's one of the reasons. And the difference is between a picture of Krishna or an uninstalled deity. They're both completely Krishna, 100%. But the difference is, if we didn't have some kind of distinction, then we'd have to bow down every time we saw a picture of Krishna and offer him our tea and all of that. Then one more thing is, it's kind of negative, but I have to say it. Yeah, we innocently offer, a few grains and sugar and fruits and vegetables to a statue that represents God. And the Christians, they eat things, composed of blood and semen in the form of dead bodies, and they're not supposed to eat what we cook. So.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I had that experience once. A young man on campus, he was from a Christian group. He was coming to Krishna lunch every day and demanding a free plate of prasadam. And of course, our policy is nobody goes hungry. We feed everybody. He was just coming to kind of like harass us. So one day he took the prasadam, and then I followed him. And he went over to Burlington Plaza and put it in a trash can. And then he was there, standing there with his friend. So I went up to him and said, "Do you think Jesus would appreciate this?" and then next day he brought me a gift certificate for a restaurant. Sorry. So anyway, okay. Anything else? Do we have a minute? Nitai Prabhu. What is it? Nishta. Yeah, it's okay. Nishta, tell us her virtual. Can you read it? She's on a plane.
She said, "Please just express my gratitude to Krishna's community. It's very hard to leave association of such beautiful souls. Thank you for making me stronger, encouraging me to live up to my name."
Okay. All right. So we'll honor the deity in the best, most popular way by honoring the remnants of the deity. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Mahapasade Govinde, Nama Brahmani Vaishnave, Swalpa Punyapakam Rajan, Vishvasanaya Vajayate. Fortunate persons develop faith in Mahaprasad, spiritual food remnants of the Lord, and the deity of Sri Govinde.